Indiana's Secretary of State says she won't hand over the voter rolls. What's next in the discussion on health care as we head into the holiday? But first, recommended high school closures are hitting a nerve for some parents and alumni in Indianapolis. The IPS board will be asking for your input during the next few months on the recommended closure of 3 high schools. The board is expected to vote on a plan in September that would transform 2 of the buildings into middle schools. The board is looking at shutting the doors to Broad Ripple High School after the next school year and selling the building. Arlington and Northwest High Schools would close under the plan and reopen as middle schools in the fall of 2018. 2 more schools the district lost in a state takeover are also on the radar. If the private operator that runs Howe and Manual High Schools ends up returning the buildings to IPS, the district would look at closing both. The announcement last week was met with protests outside of the Ed Center.
Shocked and disappointed at the same time. A lot of history, at Arlington High School when the school opened in 1961.
It gives us an opportunity to be more strategic. So we're aligning our resources with our strategic priorities. Again, as I said earlier, to be more transparent, more inclusive.
4 high schools would remain open in Indianapolis. The plan includes reinventing the remaining buildings to give all students an opportunity to enroll in career and technical education. That includes programs like welding that would aim to prepare them to enter the workforce upon graduation. There will be more opportunities to learn more about the plans. IPS will hold public meetings starting in a couple of weeks. The first is scheduled for Tuesday, July 18th at 6 p.m. That meeting will be at Broad Ripple High School. As the healthcare debate continues in Washington, Democrats are ramping up their opposition to GOP efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Indiana Senator Joe Donnelly met with local families to talk about healthcare on Friday. He says it should be affordable, well-run, and put together in an efficient and effective way.
But we should also all be able to agree, and I will make sure that we work hard to get to that point, where we don't support proposals that eliminate care for friends and neighbors like the folks who are here with us today.
We requested an interview with Senator Todd Young on the status of the health care bill. A spokesman tells me he has nothing new to add right now, with the bill changing often. Another Hoosier could be headed to Washington. President Trump is nominating Indiana's health commissioner for U.S. Surgeon General. Dr. Jerome Adams has been serving in the role since 2014, when then-Governor Mike Pence appointed him to the position. He supported giving counties the ability to start their own needle exchange programs aimed at stemming the spread of diseases like HIV and hepatitis C among IV drug users. Adams tweeted he is truly honored by the nomination and looks forward to working to improve health in the U.S. Indiana's Secretary of State is pushing back on a request from a federal commission investigating voter fraud. Secretary of State Connie Lawson says she won't provide information being sought by the Trump administration's Commission on Election Integrity. That panel is led by Vice President and former Indiana Governor Mike Pence. The group is asking all 50 states for information on every registered voter, including birthdays, social security numbers, and driver's license numbers. Lawson is a Republican, but she says the commission only needs information that is already publicly available, such as the names and addresses of registered voters. A new chance for convicts released from prison. Governor Eric Holcomb signs an executive order to ban the box in Indiana. That means potential candidates for the state's executive branch will no longer be asked on the initial job application whether they've been convicted of or arrested for a crime. The state will continue to conduct background checks. State lawmakers increased or imposed at least 45 different taxes and fees during the legislative session this year. The increases impact everything from fuel prices to teacher background checks. Governor Holcomb says he is comfortable paying for what the state needs. The increases include a 10 cents per gallon gas tax increase, which started on Saturday. It also includes an additional $15 for new vehicle registrations. Money from both fees will help pay for road construction projects. President Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin this week. That will happen on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Germany. The meeting will be the first time the two have met face-to-face since Trump took office. The president is under fire again for his use of Twitter. On Thursday, Trump went after the host of MSNBC's Morning Joe program, referring to them as low IQ crazy Mika and Psycho Joe. Trump wrote the female anchor was, quote, bleeding badly from a facelift when she allegedly tried to join the president at Mar-a-Lago around New Year's Eve. Members of his own party fired back at the president. Senator Susan Collins, seen as a key vote for health care reform, tweeted, "This has to stop. We all have a job. We don't have to get along, but we must show respect and civility." Up ahead are political insiders on that tweet in the continuing health care debate, plus the growing Hoosier influence in the nation's capital. Stay with us.
$50 off your next service.
Welcome back. We are joined by our political insiders, Mary Beth Schneider, Democrat Kip 2, and Republican Kyle Walker. Thank you for being here. Now, going back to President Trump's tweet, is his use of Twitter appropriate?
No way, no how. There are things that occasionally he will tweet out, you know, meeting with South Korea's Prime Minister, talking with Theresa May. Those things perfectly appropriate. Calling for unity after congressmen are shot, appropriate. Attacking the media, attacking individuals, calling people names, especially women, singling out rather sexist things that apparently aren't even true, beyond the pale.
You know, it's not the gun, it's the person behind the gun. I think that's what people said for a long time about those types of issues. It's just Donald Trump and his personality and the way he's always behaved. I don't know why people are surprised. The media made a big deal out of this thing this week and were very outraged because one of their fellow members was attacked. But the fact of the matter is this president, this Congress is trying to take health care insurance away from 22 million people. That's what we ought to be focused on. We ought to be debating what's going on in Congress because it's affecting real lives. Twitter wars with the president don't do anything.
Is it deliberate, though, Kyle?
I don't think it's deliberate. I think that Kip is right. We should be focused on things that are much more important to the daily lives of Americans, including the health care laws that we're currently looking at in the Senate. And I think that anything that takes away from that is unfortunate.
Well, speaking of that, the president tweeted to Republican senators that if they can't agree on a plan that's on the table right now, they should repeal the Affordable Care Act immediately, replace later. Is that possible?
Well, I doubt it, but it's bizarre, isn't it?
Because what would happen in Indiana would be 400,000 people would probably lose health insurance. $2 billion hole in Indiana's budget because HIT 2.0 counts on the money from the feds for that program to work. And so there's got to be some kind of replacement. You just can't repeal it and then go, okay, we'll see you later.
He opposed this when Mitch McConnell talked about doing it at the beginning of the year. So to bring it up now is almost an admission of defeat and that nothing's going to happen.
Well, but it's clear that something does need to happen, and something needs to happen rather quickly. You know, premiums have increased 73% since Obamacare took effect. It's clearly tanking. It's a problem for individuals. It's a problem for states. And
the only reason it's tanking, or in the places where he's claiming that it's tanking, is because the Republicans have been sabotaging. For 8 years now, we've heard Republicans talk about how Obamacare wasn't any good, and they cannot come up with a replacement. For 8 years, you guys have been talking about a replacement, and you still don't have one.
A replacement is currently being discussed. Democrats have failed to come to the table. They still haven't come to the table.
Come on, Kyle.
Joe Donnelly is right there at the top of the list of folks that do not want to sit down and actually talk about.
Actually, he had a proposal to meet with Republicans.
A reasonable fix to Obamacare. What you see in the Senate version is a good start. They have clearly listened to input, and they have they're redrafting it this weekend to improve provisions, including Medicaid.
If Republicans had wanted Democrats at the table, then they should have had committee hearings. There should not have been 13 men behind closed doors. I think there were Republicans who wanted to come to the table, like Susan Collins, who weren't allowed in there. That was really disturbing, especially when you heard the complaints on Obamacare, how it was passed, and Mitch McConnell promised regular order, and that hasn't happened. I do think, however, that there is time to start over, come together, take the best ideas of both parties. This will not be a repeal of Obamacare. This will be fix what's wrong with Obamacare. And then I think we can get it done.
And Democrats from the very beginning have said Obamacare is not perfect. We are willing to work with Republicans, will work with Republicans, but it was Mitch McConnell who said from the very first day the president was in office, we want to make him a one-term president. We don't want Obamacare to succeed. We're not going to give any votes. The president waited a year trying to bring Chuck Grassley and others on board, was working working with them, and in the end, your base wouldn't let us do a bipartisan bill because your base has lost their mind.
There's still an opportunity for a bipartisan bill now.
There is.
And Democrats do need to come to the table, and they need to have a reasonable conversation.
As soon as they get invited, they'll be there.
This is a public debate, and we're talking about it now, but the folks in Congress are talking about it also. There's every opportunity in the world for Joe Donnelly and the rest of the Democratic Party to provide input. They failed to do so.
That's not
but there's
true.
still time.
Joe Donnelly had 3 ideas this week.
There have been several Democrat proposals out there, but I think that perhaps Republicans ought to be paying attention as not just to other senators, but to governors. You've seen a bipartisan group of governors come out and talk about the plans. I really think they ought to have a seat at the table, too, since Medicaid is so state-oriented.
2018, we talked about it in the past. Impact on the 2018 Senate race here in Indiana. We've got 60 seconds. The longer this goes on, does that play more of a role?
Yes, it does, but I think it's way too early to try to make a prediction about what's going to happen in November of 2018. I really do. I mean, it's so far off. We have no idea what this president's going to do next. Nobody does. Poor Kyle has to come here and defend him every so often, and it's, I feel bad for him having to defend him, but I wish he'd stop because the guy's a complete jerk, and he shouldn't be sitting in the White House.
I think it certainly will be part of the 2018 conversation. I think, it goes back to when Joe Donnelly was in Congress and he voted for Obamacare. Again, I mean, I'll continue to highlight the fact that they had ample opportunities to try to fix and improve Obamacare, but it's really falling in on its own weight. And now it's time to fix them. We need to come together and have a serious conversation about how to do that.
Mary Beth, 15 seconds.
I agree it's way too early, but I also agree that no matter what happens, this is going to be a campaign issue. They pass something, the people who lose coverage are going to be upset. Don't pass something, people who lose coverage in areas where the exchanges are tanking will be upset.
All right, we'll have to keep it to that. Thank you all for your input on this. Up next, retirement for the head of Indiana and Kentucky's Planned Parenthood chapter, and the latest on a court battle over a new abortion law. The CEO of one of the most hot-button organizations in the country is stepping down after 15 years. Planned Parenthood of Indiana and Kentucky's Betty Cockrum is sharing final thoughts and her concerns in the healthcare debate.
I think what's at stake is first and foremost, if they unplug this network, then you're looking at an increase in STDs, you're looking at an increase in cervical cancer, the breast and testicular exams that are done that give a patient an early alert would be gone, and to limit access to birth control, more unintended pregnancies, and down the road, more abortions. One thing that's true is it takes a while for those numbers to actually be brought up and made public, and so the politicians don't necessarily get that compelling quantified response that's needed for them to think differently.
What has been the biggest challenge in this role?
It's a constant distraction to have these fights, these political fights. There's a fair amount of time and energy involved in that, and at the same time we're trying to put that positive message out there that if you truly wish to reduce the incidence of abortion, which is an objective all of us share, you do that with education and access to birth control. And we pound it, but it really falls on deaf ears.
Cockrum leaves her post as Planned Parenthood claims victory over court action blocking parts of a new abortion law from taking effect. A preliminary injunction halts a change in law that would have allowed the court to notify parents if their daughter under the age of 18 sought a judge's approval to get an abortion. The ACLU of Indiana had sued to block the law on behalf of Planned Parenthood. No word yet on whether the Indiana Attorney General plans to appeal the decision. Indiana Right to Life is urging the state to do just that. In a statement, the CEO says in part, Hoosiers are tired of seeing activist judges legislate abortion from the bench. Attorney General Curtis Hill disputes Planned Parenthood's argument that the law could harm minors who have abusive parents. In a statement, he says this law already enables judges to determine that some minors could have extenuating circumstances in their relationship with their parents that make notification unwise or unsafe. In these instances, judges have full authority to waive the notification of parents.
She wouldn't walk in that building. She was terrified to go back. She was very afraid.
turning fear and frustration into focus and fortitude. A Columbus teenager is proving your circumstances don't define you. Ashley Johnson instead is flying high, even after epilepsy and fights made her fall to the floor.
5, 6, 7, sit. 1. Good.
Notice that bandage on Ashley's arm? Don't worry, she doesn't either.
If I think about it, I may get a little scared, but I don't think about it, so I've never been scared. 5, 6, 7, 8.
At 14, Ashley Johnson is an honor-roll cheerleading coach. Injuries are just part of the game.
I mean, there's always that little question in my head. What's going to happen? Is she okay?
Mom Chauncey has an excuse for the nerves. As a baby, Ashley suffered from seizures.
She basically did not speak, did not babble, no longer crawled, no longer sat up.
She can still remember rushing her to the doctor time and time again.
At that moment, you know, I panicked. What's my daughter's future going to be like? What is she going to be able to do? Will she ever get to drive? I mean, I cried a lot and prayed a lot.
The prayers grew stronger when Chauncey says Ashley was bullied and attacked at just 7 years old.
It was sad to sit and watch her child knee to the floor. She wouldn't walk in that building. She was terrified to go back. She was very afraid. 5, 6, 7, 8.
But then Ashley found comfort cheering.
8, good.
Her last seizure came on 4 years ago after a competition. But Chauncey sees her daughter's ambition as proof.
There's nothing you can do. You treat it and you move on.
So she supports. And so does Ashley.
You guys are best friends, remember?
Coaching 4-year-olds to not be afraid.
I love seeing them overcome whatever they're going through, whether it be at home or in cheer. I love being able to tell them what I know and help them and see the joy when they get something or overcome it.
Whatever their fear. She says, don't be scared.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2.
Because courage is key.
7, 8, 1. Good girl.
And that was Melissa Mahadeo reporting. Ashley doesn't just coach, she competes, and she's entering her 8th season. Now it's time for I Say, You Say, where we invite Hoosiers to share what's on their mind. Today we hear all about the Indiana Grown Initiative. The goal is to give everyone access to locally sourced food. Here's Indiana Grown Program Manager Heather Tallman.
Ever wonder where your food comes from? Me too. I wonder about a lot of things, like why it took so long for someone to finally create a tenderloin trail in Indiana. Anyway, as a mom, consumer, and supporter of all things local, knowing where your food comes from is very important to me. I've been fortunate to travel all over the state visiting farms, markets, and artisans, and more. I've seen where our food comes from and have met the folks that grow and produce it. Indiana has some of the best products around, and Hoosiers, they love to buy local. However, it's not easy finding products made in Indiana. There are so many different labels, ingredients, and packaging. But what if I told you there was an easier way to find products from Indiana? Pretty great, right? Well, that's where Indiana Grown comes in. Developed by the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, Indiana Grown is a statewide branding initiative designed to support Hoosier-based agricultural products. Members can put Indiana Grown logos on their products, making it easier for you and me to find on the shelf. What I love most about the initiative, though, are the stories. Indiana Grown has helped hundreds of Hoosiers connect with consumers, finding new markets for their products. We've supported farmers, startups, and local shops. We've even helped retirees carry out their lifelong dream of becoming sauce or candy makers. This Friday, you can hear these stories and more at our first ever Monumental Marketplace. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Monument Circle, you can eat, sample, and shop from nearly 100 Indiana Grown members. Come meet the makers behind some of Indiana's best products and learn all about where your food comes from. And with 7% of Americans thinking that chocolate milk comes from a brown cow, then I think we have our work cut out for us. I'm Heather Tallman, and that's what I say.
Thank you, Heather. We want to know what you say. Reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, or the RTV6 mobile app. You could be the next person featured.
And weekday mornings at 9 on RTV6. Good morning to you. I'm Amanda Starantino, and here's what we're working on right now at RTV6. Right now, police are on the scene of a deadly duplex fire on the west side in the Speedway area. Police say a man inside of the home was killed after it caught fire. It all started around 4 this morning. One man was evacuated from his side of the duplex. The other died. The cause is under investigation. A bold criminal caught on camera stealing a package from a porch in a highly visible and populated area in the middle of the day. It happened at a home in the 4400 block of Winthrop Avenue. Police are looking for this person, trying to track him down before he strikes again. If you recognize the man in this video, you need to contact police. And here's a live look at our weather now. Cameras spread out across central Indiana. It is shaping up to be a beautiful day. No rain expected in the forecast until tomorrow. So go out and enjoy it. And a reminder to be safe with any fireworks that you do at home this weekend. And enjoy the fireworks shows that all the cities are hosting. Have a great 4th of July weekend.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Lauren Casey. It's time for the 6, so let's take a look at 6 things coming up in Indy this week. Well, you can extend your weekend into the holiday by attending some fun events on Monday. Out in Anderson, they're having their 4th of July parade at 7 o'clock, followed by fireworks. And then across town, Whitestown is celebrating with a fireworks show on Monday night at Eagle Church. As for your Independence Day, there's no shortage of events to keep you and the kids busy. Stop by the Carmel Parade, wave hello. I'll be there with some folks from right here at RTV6. And of course, Tuesday night is the biggest fireworks display in Indianapolis. The Freedom Festival will light up the city's skyline around 10 o'clock from the Indiana War Memorial. Skipping ahead now to Friday, we do have a brand new event right here in the Circle City. Check this out. The Monumental Marketplace is taking over the Circle during your lunch hour. You can sample food from local Indiana-grown farmers, so leave your lunch at home on Friday. Indy PopCon is taking over the Convention Center and Lucas Oil this weekend. The convention celebrates pop culture with TV, movies, comics, and the internet. This event runs from Friday through Sunday. You can lace up your shoes, strap on your helmet. This Saturday, the Indy Criterium Bicycle Festival is in downtown. You and the kids can ride on down to Monument Circle and join thousands for this annual ride. And this weekend, celebrate our state's rich basketball history with the Indy Hoops Fest. This event takes place both Saturday and Sunday at Lucas Oil Stadium, and it includes several tournaments. So good luck, have fun. We have a busy week ahead here in Indy. I hope you enjoy it. Back to you.
Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. Have a great week ahead.